hour. I'm going to light this thing up so you guys can get out of here in just 10 minutes. Does that sound okay? Okay, good. So we're going to talk about three concepts: crowd, data, and cloud. Are these coming up in your work on the operational side in the field? Heads nodding, are we hearing these words? As much as blockchain, or less or more? Thumbs up if more, thumbs down if less. Okay, more. So what John was saying, we're going to be somewhere between kind of like the 70s, 90s, and 2010, and blockchain went out of here. So we're going to land right in the middle. And it's amazing with the remarks that I'm going to share how consistent the 8 or 9 minutes I have with you will align with what you've heard so far. So it's my argument that if we as organizations in the field and back in the admin offices learn a little bit more about the crowd, do a better job with our data, and really do embrace this cloud computing paradigm, that we will really start to reach the impacts that we want. We may not step as far forward as some of the blockchain pieces, but I'm committed to you that those three concepts will in fact help us continue to migrate toward a future that we really want to realize in our work. So this may or may not be the distributed data or content management infrastructure that you have as an organization. I'm executive director of Box.org. We support 5,000 nonprofits today in managing their content, so their plans, their pictures, their videos, their presentations, their grant documents, you name it, in a more modern way. And a lot of the plumbing that's being used in many of our organizations is not as shiny and new and cloud-based as I wish it were, nor is it as secure. So if we can, let's run the video briefly. And I'm going to give you an optical tour of the way that Grameen adopted Box to manage all of its content. So green are Grameen employees, blue are their partners and collaborators, external to the organization. These are their documents for where the lines are. So as you can see, this turns into a hairball pretty fast. A hairball is an analogy for a lot of lines that get caught in a cat's throat and it has to cough that out. Okay, so this is your content. This was Grameen's content at day 1,300 of their deployment, so 3 or 4 years into that. This is what the content, the documents, the collaboration look like for them. So people inside the organization interacting with those outside the organization in a more secure, a more accountable way. So blockchain-ish, if you want to call it that. All of the technology, the mobile devices, the instruments used to access this content by Grameen used through the cloud. And so as we transition back over to the slides, I've decided that we're going to veer off and talk about taps, which I call faucets, and then I got in trouble by our UK office today and they said, say taps, plumbing and the cloud, and meteorology if we have to. But actually no, we're going to talk briefly about cloud data and cloud. With crowd, which in fact are these distributed networks of collaborators, I'll share one trend in computing that you may want to talk to your ICT counterparts about. It's very disruptive and I think helpful. In the data realm, or the plumbing related to our data, our content, I'll offer 3 quick resources, and then I'll share a project that we're working on at the end that I hope you and your technology counterparts will in fact join us on. So it'll be a quick tour. So first, more elegant digital experiences. Remember how messy that first slide was with the plumbing in the middle and the governments and the funders and all those icons around it? That to me is the crowd, right? More and more we're tapping into a populace that aren't necessarily as educated about our work as we are. So volunteers that are getting involved in disaster crisis, an example. We deserve for that crowd to be enlisted for the technology to be more elegant and more simple. If we do that, asking our collaborators to come to us and drink of our content and our information and the data that we collect in our work will be a lot more like grabbing water out of this tap, which requires you just to wave your hand across the tap as opposed to digging a well each time a collaborator or funder wants to drill into our content. So let's focus as much as we can on the left side of this with our IT counterparts to build elegant digital experiences for our collaborators. Who does this well? Uber. Anybody used Uber before, the app? Show of hands if you've used it. I know this can be a religious conversation. Some people are very pro-Uber and some are very not pro-Uber based on operating practices. But nonetheless, they build elegant interfaces and digital experiences for those of us that need a ride. Now you may not know this, but Uber itself, at its core, doesn't build all the technology that it uses. Much like many of our ICT counterparts don't build all of the services that they use, like the Oxfam video that you saw earlier. Oxfam is using my technology. They're augmenting it through the internet a little bit, they're configuring it a little bit, right? But Uber is a composition of multiple functional platforms as a service. So their payment technology is not Uber technology, their maps are Google Maps. Their communication infrastructure are our good friends at Twilio, who help you SMS your driver if he or she is late and hasn't arrived on time. So just know they're cobbling together platforms as a service instead of building their technology from the ground up. And so I won't belabor the stack, but know that we're moving with infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, now into this notion, this new concept of functional platforms as a service, so that when you build your applications, which ideally will help you better interact with your collaborators, your funders, all of the different constellation of collaborators in the crowd that you're tapping into for work to move your capacity up and your efficiency up. The notion is, don't go rebuild a content infrastructure, because we built that. Don't go rebuild a communications or a payment or an emailing or an identity and mobile platform from the ground up. Use security as a service, content as a service, communications as a service. Consider the use of these platforms as a service. So number 2, again, this is where I give you 3 resources for those taking notes. Thanks for those that are taking notes. If your data plumbing looks like this, as we said earlier, time to make investments there, right? Time to move toward a more cloudy version of what's on the left. Cleaner plumbing. I wrote this paper with 15 or so experts. I, unlike many of my previous speakers this evening, haven't directly gone to work for a humanitarian organization, though I've been serving the humanitarian and nonprofit sector for 10 or 15 years and volunteering like crazy around the world. But I did write this paper so that you, if you need to, go talk to ICT or talk to the funding agents about more technology funding and less restricted tech funding, which I think Sean Lowry very much appreciates for me to help you advocate for. This paper may help. So find it at the website vox.org. Also, anyone familiar with the work of Carol Bothwell from CRS, ICT for D? Anybody in the room heard of Carol's work? So 10% of the room. This is an amazing document. And it's not for the weary. If you're ready to understand all the elements of where technology from the cloud, communications, infrastructure, et cetera, roll up to the development goals, please find this online. So Google SDG ICT, and you'll find a paper that really will translate practices gathered by all of those people on the right that will help you, I think, automate, disrupt, break, go forward with your ICT strategy. And last, I ran into this group 2 weeks ago in the San Francisco area where I live, and I just appreciated that though we heard a little bit earlier from, I believe it was Laura, say that it isn't about the solutions necessarily, it's about the safe space with which solutions can emerge, and I agree. However, for many decades, we've done a lot of really good work. We just don't have great platforms where those practices are shared. Again, maybe not stepping all the way back into what Vijay was talking about, but certainly moving closer to this democratic sharing of practices that work. And I think Sphara is doing some interesting work here with some funding from Rockefeller. So if you're interested in practices and the sharing of those practices and the building blocks under those solutions, industry and technology. So last but not least, so that we stay on time, and I still have 4 minutes here, I've got a 90-second video I'll show at the end, but I wanted to tell you about a project that we're working on. The cloud is not this scary, okay? It seems scary, it seems like a new computing paradigm, it seems like a new way of paying for technology. It's an operating expense instead of CapEx. The cloud generation of companies that are engaging this are all like teenagers in Silicon Valley. We're not necessarily the Microsofts in every case, even though they've now kind of jumped onto the cloud platform and find it really fascinating to talk about. But no, we're not that scary in the cloud. Okay, so these are the teenagers that I spoke about, and Okta's in the room. Garrett's here. He's amazing. He looks after the nonprofit relationships for Okta from here in the UK. But these are some organizations that I got together after the Clinton Global Initiative gathering last year and realized you as organizations should join us in this work. And Vox.org kind of started to become the aggregator of these technologies, some of which are providing that functional platform as a service. Some of them are providing software as a service that you or your IT counterparts may have heard about. But what's exciting for you is that these organizations, in the vein of what Tara was talking about public-private partnerships that help everybody maximize their contribution, are starting to centralize content about how their technologies will support your teams in the field in crisis response. The next phase of this work is for us to start building interoperable solutions with design thinking in mind, that then through the START network and other conveners, we can share and train unit organizations on these interoperable solutions. So first we surrounded an organization called Team Rubicon. Anybody heard of them? 50 staff. Prince Philip was out there, I believe, or Harry, or one of the two, slinging sandbags when things happened in Nepal recently. But nonetheless, we've surrounded Team Rubicon, trying hard to understand how it is that they deploy 30,000 different volunteers to most disasters of a certain size with a small 35 or 40 employee staff. And it's because they're tapping into the crowd in a more and more elegant way. And so I'll run this last video, but before we start it, I just want you to know that what they're doing is tapping into the crowd, working with those partners that I shared to build more elegant taps instead of rusty pipes and bad interfaces and bad digital experiences. They're taking advantage of the resources that are helping them get more funding from private sector and collaboration from collaboratives like the one that I shared. That will be more public later this year. You're getting a teaser for those teenagers in the cloud that are here to support you. And last but not least, they're doing a much, much better job of leveraging and transitioning everything that they got into the cloud. So they don't have that room with servers that needs the white, what did we call it earlier? The white jacket to manage, the white robe. So let's run one more video really quickly where you can see an organization that's small and disruptive and making change, and 40 staff and 30,000 volunteers are tapping into this crisis response environment using cloud.
Team Rubicon started just after the Haiti earthquake. We're in the business of helping people. We're military vets and first responders who provide disaster relief across the U.S. and the globe. And in the early days, we thought of Team Rubicon as a small club. We grew 20,000 members over a 2-year period, and are still growing at about 200 a week. That's where technology comes in and has enabled us to scale. What I came into was really a refill of technology. We had different platforms and no coherent strategy. We had Google Apps, Dropbox, Box as our primary systems. The other systems I mentioned just simply didn't measure up to what Box could do for us. And it's really because it's tailored as a business solution. It was a head-to-head competition, and Box won the prize. And it was really no contest. Greater communication and collaboration on a national scale as we build documentation and policies and procedures. This collaboration really enables us to refine our processes of what we do. These are things that we use to mobilize our teams and for them to use as a script to help people. Box.org is doing a tremendous amount for Team Rubicon. The simple act of helping someone is very, very powerful. It's so clear to me what Box has done for our organization and will continue to do for a long time. I just couldn't imagine a better fit for us.
And I do this because, of course, there's some commercial purpose. I've donated Vox to 3,000 orgs. I've charged Oxfam and a couple other thousand a dramatically discounted rate. So that notion of social enterprise kicks into play. You work with Vox, you're going to be treated absolutely like our best clients in the world. But the more that you're innovating, the more that you're feeding back to us, the more you're using the technology, the more I can build partnerships, enlist my employees, and start to make some of those more traditional CSR investments that many folks are hoping for. So my goal is to be the new generation of CSR entity, and I look very much forward to partnering with everyone in the room, and we'll be around. My fiance Amanda is here as well. I look forward to shaking hands and breaking bread with you after this. Thanks.